We all leave behind a legacy of our life, what the message of our life was, what we did, what we accomplished, the way that people knew us, the things that people knew us for. And today we are working on whatever that legacy is going to be. Alfred Nobel was one of the wealthiest businessmen of the 1800s. He was an inventor and he um, invented a product that once he learned to ship it safely, became very successful. And his product was dynamite. Um, Alfred Nobel's company went on to control the market for explosives, not only explosives that were used in construction, but also in warfare. So he went on to like landmines and mines that are used at sea and explosives that are used in warfare was part of what Alfred Nobel's company produced. Alfred Nobel had the unusual experience of reading his own obituary. His brother Ludwig had died, and Alfred Nobel was living in Paris, I think, at the time, and he got up in the morning and opened the newspaper, and the newspaper had mistakenly run an obituary for Alfred rather than for Ludwig, his brother. And the title on Alfred Nobel's obituary was "The Merchant of Death is Dead." And Alfred Nobel did not want to be remembered as the Merchant of Death. And he went on then to become a philanthropist. He established the Nobel Prizes, and one of the most predominant of the Nobel Prizes is the Nobel Peace Prize. And so today, when we think of the name Nobel, we're much more likely to think of peace than to think of war. Well, we all uh, work throughout our lives to accomplish something, and what that is up to us. And every day, we are working toward that legacy that we'll leave behind and how we were known. Edith and I have friends in Dryden, Wilsons, and when we came back from Haiti, um, Roy and Pat had them at our house for dinner sometimes, and they had us at their house sometimes. And so after we came back from Haiti, they said, "Why don't you come over to our house and talk to us about Haiti?" And so he said, "Well, actually, come out to our cottage." And so I said, "Okay." And Roy said, "I'll meet you out by the road because it's kind of hard to find my cottage." And so he met us out by the Trans-Canada Highway, and we followed him into his cottage. And my problem started when we were following him into his cottage because he was driving a Jaguar and I was driving a Ford Escort station wagon, which wasn't new by any means. And so we got to their cottage and I parked beside his Jaguar and I looked at his Jaguar and oh, now that's a real car. Like, I wonder what it feels like to drive a Jaguar. That's a real car. And I wonder what he thinks of my Ford Escort. And so we went to their cottage, and we had been to their house, but this was their cottage, and their cottage was bigger and nicer than my house and our house. And so I thought, well, that's this is pretty nice having a cottage by the lake like this. And then Roy said, well, dinner isn't ready, so I'll take you sailing until dinner's ready. Well, he had, I don't know, maybe a 40-foot sailboat. And so we went out sailing and we were going around the lake sailing. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a way to live. Like, this is really it. This is how a person ought to live. The Jaguar, the cottage, the sailboat. Like, life doesn't get any better than this. And we came back in and we were going to eat down on the dock and the picnic table there. And we had steak and baked potatoes and when we sat down to eat, then Roy was saying, "Now after we're done with dinner, we're going to go up to the cottage and we're going to talk about Haiti. But there's a jacuzzi here on the dock, and if the children want to go in the jacuzzi while we go up to the cottage, they could do that." I'm thinking, "No, he has a jacuzzi too," and I'm thinking, and I will confess to you that my steak and baked potato didn't taste very good because I was feeling sorry for myself. I was feeling like, you know, I mean, he's got everything. He's got the Jaguar, the cottage, the sailboat, the jacuzzi. I got nothing. And the way I'm living my life, I never will have anything. And I should have stayed in Pennsylvania. I should have gone into business, and maybe I'd have a cabin in the mountains and a boat at the shore, and I'd have something to show for life. And I got nothing. And so I was feeling pretty sorry for myself. So after dinner, we went up to the cottage and we talked about Haiti, showed them our pictures from Haiti, talked about things that happened there. And partway through that conversation, uh, Roy turned to Pat and he said, "You know, Pat, we should have gotten more involved in the church." And he's saying, like when we travel, we just go places and look at things and look at what Merle and his family have done. And God just kind of spoke to me and said, "You know what? Like you were crying into your steak and baked potato down there by the dock and feeling sorry for yourself, but really, you don't have any reason to feel sorry for yourself because your life has been filled with meaningful experiences and relationships." And that's true. And if I would get to the end of my life and all I would have to show for 70 years of life or 80 years of life, however long I live, if all I would have to show for it would be a Jaguar, a sailboat, and a jacuzzi and a cottage by the lake, that wouldn't be enough. There's just more to life than things. And I don't want the legacy of my life to be things that I left behind. I want to invest in things that have meaning and significance for eternity and in relationships with people that make a difference in their lives. And when my life is finished, I want there to be people on the earth whose lives are better than they would have been if I hadn't chosen to live my life the way I did.